Hi, I'm Mona. I'm 26. Let me ask you something. Has your phone ever rung and the moment you saw an English call coming in, your whole body changed? Your shoulders tightened, your chest felt heavy, your thoughts became crowded. You answered anyway because maybe it was important, maybe you had no choice, maybe it was work, maybe it was a clinic, maybe it was a company, maybe it was someone who needed a quick answer. Then the voice on the other end began speaking, and after the first few seconds, everything felt wrong. The sound was too fast, the words were too connected. The voice was unclear, there was no face to watch, there were no gestures, there was no body language, there was no smile to help you feel safe, it was only sound, and suddenly you understood almost nothing. That happened to me, not once, more than once. But one phone call stayed in my memory more than all the others because it made me feel small, embarrassed, and helpless in a way that face-to-face English often did not. On the phone, I could not see the person. I could not read their lips. I could not guess as much from the situation. I could not buy time by smiling politely. I could not look calm while my mind caught up. Everything depended on listening clearly and responding quickly, and I was not ready. Today, I want to tell you that story. I also want to teach you something practical and important. You will learn why phone English feels harder than in-person English. You will learn survival phrases for phone calls. You will learn how to ask people to repeat, slow down, clarify, and confirm details. You will learn how to sound polite even when you are confused. You will learn how to stay calmer when you cannot understand. And if you ever feel nervous about phone calls in English, I want you to know this now. You are not strange, you are not weak, and you are definitely not alone. Phone English is hard for many learners, very hard, but it can become easier. First, I will tell you my story about the phone call that made me feel like I could not understand anything. Then I will explain why phone conversations in English feel so difficult. After that, I will teach you simple survival English for phone calls. Then we will practice useful phrases together. After that, I will show you what to do before, during, and after an English phone call. Finally, I will give you 5 review questions and a clear message to remember. I will use simple English, natural situations, and practical phrases. This lesson is for a 2 to B1 learners who want real-life English, not just textbook English. Ready? Let's begin. Before I tell you the main story, I want to explain something important. At that time, I was already nervous about English conversations, but the phone created a different kind of fear. When you speak to someone in person, you get extra help. You see their eyes, you see their expression, you notice when they look confused, you notice when they are patient, you see their hands move, you feel the environment around you. Even if your English is not strong, these extra signals help your brain. But on the phone, much of that disappears, you only hear sound. If the line is bad, it becomes worse. If the speaker talks quickly, it becomes worse. If they have an unfamiliar accent, it becomes worse. If you are already anxious, every sound feels even harder to catch. I did not understand this clearly at the time. I only knew one thing. When I heard English on the phone, my confidence dropped immediately. The same simple sentence that I could understand face to face sometimes became confusing through a phone speaker. And because I did not understand why, I blamed myself. I thought my English was weak. I thought I was failing. I thought I should be better than this. That self-judgment made everything heavier. It was an ordinary afternoon, which is why the moment surprised me so much. I was at home doing small tasks and trying to enjoy a quiet day. Nothing dramatic was happening. I was not in a crisis. I was not expecting difficult news. I was not preparing for a test. Then my phone rang. I looked at the screen and saw a number I did not know. For a second, I thought about letting it ring. Maybe it was spam, maybe it was not important, maybe I could ignore it, but then another thought came into my mind. What if this is important? What if it is about an appointment, a service, or something I actually need? So I answered. Hello? A woman on the line began speaking right away. Her voice was polite, professional, fast, too fast for me. She said several things in one long flow. I caught maybe 3 pieces. My name, something about a date or time, something about confirmation. Then everything became a blur. I remember thinking, slow down, slow down, slow down. But of course, she could not hear that thought inside my head, so I stayed silent for a second too long. Then I said, sorry. She repeated herself, but not much more slowly. And because I was now nervous, the second version sounded almost worse. That is another cruel thing about listening anxiety. The more panic enters, the less clearly the brain works. I could hear sounds, I could catch a few familiar words, but the full message was not landing, and the worst part was this. I knew she expected a simple answer. This was probably a normal phone task for her, a quick call, a short confirmation, nothing dramatic. Meanwhile, inside me, it felt like I was trying to survive a storm made of words. When learners say, I couldn't understand anything, that sentence is not always literally true. Usually, the experience is more painful and more specific. It is not total silence. It is a partial understanding. You catch pieces, but not enough. You understand a few words, but not the meaning. You hear the sentence, but cannot organize it quickly. That is what happened to me. I heard appointment. I heard tomorrow. I heard confirm. I heard morning or maybe Monday. I was not even sure, and that uncertainty is exhausting. Because when you hear only fragments, your brain starts working too hard. It tries to build meaning from broken pieces. It makes a guess, it doubts itself, it tries again. All of this happens in seconds while the other person is still speaking. I wanted to ask her to slow down. I wanted to ask her to say it differently. I wanted to ask, are you talking about my appointment? But at that moment, my thoughts were crowded. I was trying to understand and trying to sound polite and trying not to embarrass myself at the same time, so I gave the weakest answer possible. Yes, that one word bought me nothing. She continued speaking, and now I felt trapped. Because when you answer as if you understand, even a little, the other person usually keeps going. And that is exactly what she did. This was the real mistake. Instead of stopping the call and clearly saying I was having trouble understanding, I began guessing. She asked something and I said, okay. She said something else and I said, yes. Then she asked another question and I answered in a way that probably did not match the question at all. I could feel it. I could hear the uncertainty in my own voice. I could feel my responses becoming thinner and weaker. The woman on the phone became slightly slower now, but not because I asked clearly. I think she sensed that something was wrong. She said my name again. Then she repeated part of the message. This time I finally understood more. She was calling to confirm an appointment time. A simple call, A normal call, a short practical call, but because I had not controlled the conversation early, the whole experience had become messy. I asked her to repeat the time. She did. I asked again. She repeated it again. Finally, I understood enough to confirm. When the call ended, I did not feel relieved at first. I felt embarrassed, very embarrassed. Not because she was rude. She was not because something terrible happened. It did not. I felt embarrassed because the call had shown me a weak area in my English very clearly. Listening in real life was different from listening in lessons. Phone English was its own challenge, and I had not trained for it. Later, when I thought about the experience more calmly, I understood that several problems were happening at the same time. A. The speaker was fast. B. I could not see her face. C. The audio quality was limited. D. The topic was practical and detail-based. E. I felt pressure to answer quickly. F. My anxiety made listening harder. G. I used weak survival phrases instead of clear ones. These 7 points matter. When learners struggle on the phone, it is often not one single problem. There are several small problems happening together. For example, confirming a date or time sounds simple, but dates and times are detail-heavy. If you miss one number or one day's name, the whole meaning can break, so even a normal sentence can feel difficult if the context is precise. The phone also removes visual support. That means your ears must do more work, and then there is pressure. Pressure changes the brain. When you feel calm, you can often guess missing pieces. When you feel stressed, even known words can sound unfamiliar. That was exactly my experience. After the call, I kept thinking about better phrases I could have used. This happens to many learners. Later, when the pressure is gone, the good English returns. I realized I should have said something clear and polite right away. For example, sorry, the line is not very clear. Could you please speak a little more slowly? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you repeat the time, please? Are you calling about my appointment? These phrases are simple but powerful. Instead, I had used weak, unclear responses. Sorry? Yes. Okay. These responses do not guide the conversation. They do not protect you. They do not tell the speaker what kind of help you need. That was a major lesson for me. In difficult listening situations, weak sounds are not enough. You need a clear survival language. If this has happened to you, I want to explain something carefully. Phone English is hard for many reasons. First, connected speech becomes harder to catch through a device. Words run together more easily. Second, you lose the speaker's face, and the face helps with listening more than many people realize. Third, many phone calls are practical. They include names, dates, times, addresses, instructions, and details. These are exact things, not broad ideas. Fourth, phone conversations often move quickly because the caller expects efficiency. Fifth, there is emotional pressure. On the phone, long silence feels heavier. Many learners feel they must answer fast, even when they need more time. Sixth, some people on the phone use polite, formal language that learners hear less often in casual English lessons. All of this means one important thing. If you struggle on the phone, it does not mean your English is bad in every area. It may simply mean phone listening is a separate skill that needs separate practice. That understanding made me feel lighter. It changed the story in my head. I was not helpless. I was undertrained. That is a very different problem and a much more hopeful one. After that call, I decided I needed a small set of phone survival phrases, not advanced business language, not perfect, polished expressions, just simple, strong phrases that I could use under pressure. These are the kinds of phrases that helped me most. I'm sorry, could you say that again? Could you speak a little more slowly, please? The line is not very clear. Are you calling about my appointment? Can you repeat the date, please? Can you repeat the time, please? Let me make sure I understand. So it's Tuesday at 10 a.m., correct? Could you spell that for me, please? One moment, please. I'm writing that down. Thank you for repeating that. These phrases are powerful because they do two things at once. They protect your understanding. They also help you sound polite and in control. That second part matters. When you are confused, you do not want to sound rude, but you also do not want to disappear into silence. Good survival phrases give you a bridge between confusion and communication. Some time later, I got another English phone call. This time, I was still nervous. I was not magically fearless, but I was more prepared. The phone rang, I answered. The caller began speaking. Again, the speech felt a little fast at first, but this time, instead of giving a weak yes or okay, I used one of my prepared lines. I'm sorry, could you speak a little more slowly, please? The caller slowed down. Immediately, the whole conversation became easier. Then I used another line. Let me make sure I understand. That phrase gave me time and control. At one point, I needed confirmation, so I said, so it's Thursday at 3 p.m., correct? And the caller said yes. That call was not perfect. I still asked for repetition. I still felt some tension, but I did not feel lost. That difference was huge. I was still a learner, but now I had tools, and tools change confidence. Sometimes you know a phone call is coming. Maybe you have a scheduled call with a clinic, a company, a school, or a service. If that is the case, there are simple things you can do before the call. A. Prepare a notebook and pen. B. Sit in a quiet place. C. Keep your calendar nearby. D. Review basic number words, days, and times. E. Prepare 3 or 4 survival phrases. F. Breathe before answering. G. Remind yourself that repetition is normal. These small actions matter more than they seem to. Preparation reduces panic. If your pen is ready, if your notebook is open, if your mind already expects details, you listen differently. Also, remind yourself of this truth. The goal is not to understand every single sound. The goal is to manage the conversation successfully. That means asking questions when needed. That means checking details. That means slowing the moment down. During the call, follow a simple strategy. First, listen to the topic. What is this call about? Do not panic if you miss some words in the first sentence. Try to catch the main purpose. Second, use a survival phrase early if needed. Do not wait too long. If you are confused in the first 10 seconds, say so politely. Third, repeat important details back. This is especially important for names, dates, times, addresses, and instructions. Fourth, do not pretend you understand when you do not. That creates a bigger problem later. Fifth, stay calm and keep your voice steady. Even if you feel uncertain, a calm voice helps your brain work better. Here are some useful examples. If you miss the topic, sorry, are you calling about my order? If you miss the date, can you repeat the date? Please, if you miss the time, did you say 2 p.m. or 3 p.m.? If you need a spelling, could you spell that for me, please? If you want to confirm, let me repeat that back to you. These are not signs of weakness, they are signs of practical communication. After the call, do 3 simple things. A. Write down the important information immediately. B. Repeat the key phrases you used or needed. C. Reflect without attacking yourself. This last point matters. After a hard call, many learners say cruel things to themselves. My English is terrible. I can't understand anything. I'll never be good at phone calls. Please do not do that. Ask better questions. What part was difficult? Was it the speed? Was it the topic? Was it the number details? Was it my anxiety? What phrase could help next time? That kind reflection turns a painful moment into useful training. Now let's practice some common mini dialogues. These are very useful for real life. Caller, hello, I'm calling to confirm your appointment tomorrow morning. You, I'm sorry, could you say that again a little more slowly, please? Caller, of course, I'm calling to confirm your appointment tomorrow morning. You, thank you, is that appointment at 10 a.m.? Caller, yes, that's right. Here is another one. Caller, hello, this is customer service. We're calling about your delivery. You, I'm sorry, are you calling about my order? Caller, yes. Your order will arrive on Friday. You, thank you. Could you repeat the time, please? Here is another one. Caller, hello, can I speak to Mona? You speaking. Caller, I'm calling to let you know there has been a change. You, I'm sorry, the line is not very clear. Could you say that again, please? These examples may look simple. That is exactly why they help. Real-life success often depends on simple phrases used at the right moment. Many learners feel embarrassed asking people to repeat themselves. I understand that feeling, but repetition is normal. Even native speakers ask for repetition on the phone. Even confident professionals ask for repetition. Even in one's first language, names and times can be missed. So why do learners feel ashamed? Because they often treat each request as proof of weakness. But that is the wrong story. A better story is this. Asking for repetition is part of good communication. It shows care. It shows responsibility. It prevents mistakes. It protects understanding. If you remember this, the emotional pressure becomes lighter. You stop seeing repetition as failure and start seeing it as a useful tool. That change in mindset matters a lot. Now let's practice together. Please repeat after me. I'm sorry, could you say that again? Could you speak a little more slowly, please? The line is not very clear. Are you calling about my appointment? Can you repeat the date, please? Can you repeat the time, please? Let me make sure I understand. So it's Monday at 9 a.m., correct? Could you spell that for me, please? One moment, please. I'm writing that down. Very good. Now let's make the practice more real. Imagine the caller says, "Hello, I'm calling to confirm your appointment for Thursday at 2:30. You can answer, I'm sorry, could you repeat the time, please? Then you can confirm, so it's Thursday at 2:30, correct? Very good. Another example, the caller says, hello, this is customer service regarding your delivery. You can say, I'm sorry, are you calling about my order? Then later, could you speak a little more slowly, please? This is exactly how survival English grows. You repeat useful lines until they become available under pressure. I want to say something deeper now. That phone call upset me not only because I did not understand the words. It upset me because it touched a fear many learners carry quietly. The fear of becoming small in an important moment. The fear of needing help. The fear of sounding confused, the fear of disappointing someone, the fear of not being ready. Phone calls are difficult because they often arrive suddenly. They demand fast listening and fast answers. That can make a learner feel exposed. But please remember this: one hard phone call does not define your English. It only shows where the pressure is. And once you know where the pressure is, you can train that area with patience. That is exactly what I did. I did not become a perfect phone speaker overnight, but I became less afraid. Then I became more prepared. Then I became more capable. That is the real order of growth, not perfect at first. Prepared first, then stronger. Now I will ask you 5 questions. You can answer in your mind or pause the video and answer out loud. Question 1. Why did phone English feel harder for Mona than face-to-face English? Question 2. What mistake did Mona make during the first difficult phone call? Question 3. What is one useful phrase you can use if the caller is speaking too fast? Question 4. Why is repeating important details back to the caller useful? Question 5. What should you do after a difficult phone call instead of criticizing yourself? Take a moment and think. Now here are the simple answers. Answer 1. Phone English felt harder because Mona could not see the speaker's face and she had to depend only on sound. Answer 2. She started guessing and answered as if she understood instead of clearly asking for help. Answer 3. One useful phrase is, "Could you speak a little more slowly, please?" Answer 4. Repeating details back helps confirm that you understood the information correctly. Answer 5. After the call, you should reflect calmly, write down important details, and learn which phrases can help next time. So what is the lesson of this story? The lesson is not that phone calls are impossible. The lesson is not that learners should avoid them forever. The lesson is not that you need perfect listening before you answer a phone in English. The real lesson is this: phone English is a special kind of challenge. It feels harder because there is less support, more pressure, and more need for exact details. But it becomes much easier when you stop trying to survive with weak sounds and start using clear survival phrases. You do not need to understand everything immediately. You need to know how to guide the conversation when understanding is weak. That is a skill, and it can be learned. If an English phone call ever makes you feel lost, remember this: you can slow it down, you can ask again, you can confirm, you can spell, you can repeat back, you can stay polite and still ask for help, and that is not failure, that is communication. One day your phone will ring and you will still feel a little nervous. That is normal, but instead of panic, you will have tools. Instead of guessing, you will ask. Instead of shrinking, you will manage the call with simple, clear English. And when that day comes, you will realize something important. You did not need to become perfect. You only needed to become prepared. Thank you for listening.